1874, the podcast with Dan Bardell and Greg Evans.
Hello, welcome back to the 1874 podcast. It's now time for the 1874 show with myself, Dan Bardell, and Jacob Tanswell from The Athletic. Both of us at the really disappointing defeat against Manchester United at Villa Park yesterday. The 1874 show is sponsored by NordVPN, and you can grab an exclusive deal by going to 1874.io. And if you do that, you'll get a huge discount and you'll also get 4 months for free. And for English-speaking countries, the deal sweetens because you can get Uber Eats vouchers if you take out this deal. Please note this deal is exclusive to users in USA, UK, Australia and Canada. All this is completely risk-free because if you're not satisfied, you'll get your money back after 30 days with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. So if NordVPN is something that you think can help you out in everyday life, then sign up and you'll help the channel as well. Jacob. I mean, you won't know the history of Villa and Manchester United at Villa Park. Only won once since 1995 against them, and this was last season. It did feel very much like a one-off. I cannot tell you how much I dread and hate this game of football. It's the only game that ever gets me really riled up and angry. I'm quite a placid guy, but I walked out of Villa Park yesterday and just felt dejected because I thought Villa were far and away the better team. I think Manchester United are miles off us. I think they're miles off where they'd want to be, miles off challenging for the Premier League. But yet somehow in the space of 6 or 7 weeks, we've lost twice to them. I just can't understand how they have this hex over us, and I'm really upset, as you can probably tell.
It's weird, isn't it? Maybe Aston Villa are one of the only teams that Man United have consistently faced since post Sir Alex Ferguson era, and they've actually been quite good away from home against them. You think of all the terrible United teams over the last couple of years, and they've still managed to hold the wood over Villa for the large part. I think both of these games they've had, there's been sort of just freak scenarios in terms of everything that's been in Villa's favour, apart from the scoreline. It's probably the two most disappointing results, obviously from a fan's point of view, but for me just watching the game as well, thinking these are games where not only should Villa get something out of it, they should probably win these games. And you probably had that sense of regret straight afterwards as you're coming out of Villa Park, Dan, because you're thinking these points might be so crucial in May, but also we had such a great opportunity to beat Man United and, not only this season, but finally start to turn the record around after last year's win as well.
It felt massive, this game. To me, it was the only time, again, that I've been nervous going into a game this season. If you think back to that run of Manchester City and Arsenal, it was more, I was looking forward to those games, pitting ourselves against the best two of the best 3 teams. We were in really good form. This one felt big yesterday because a win would obviously take us 11 points clear of Manchester United in the chase for Champions League football, top 4, top 5. But losing, suddenly, they're now 5 points off us, and it's felt like we've been quite a way away from them all season. They've suddenly hit a bit of form at the same time that we've hit a bit of a patchy run of form. And now the league table, whereas the top 5 looked quite separated from the rest of the pack, it suddenly looks a little bit more congested now. So take away all the stuff about how much I hate losing and hate playing against Manchester United. The bigger picture now in the Premier League going into the running is that it's a lot tighter than we'd like it to be. And the way Villa's season's going now, I don't want to be dramatic, and it's been a phenomenal season. I love Unai Emery still. I love these players. I've so much love and respect for everything they've done. It does feel now that we're like either going to go one way or the other, and you can't help as a Villa fan but just to have that little bit of worry that it might go the way we don't want.
Yeah, I said in the preview that maybe this Man United game will represent a tipping point for Villa. In retrospect, I hope it doesn't. But it's just because, I don't know, it's probably since that Man United game, Villa have stopped looking above and thinking, are they in the Premier League races, however fanciful that's been, and having a bit of a laugh. It's become a little bit more serious, hasn't it, now, where you're thinking, oh my God, we've actually got a chance of getting Champions League, and yet we see these people, we see these teams coming, on our necks, with the breathing down our necks. And I think you probably felt that in the last couple of weeks, just thinking the gap's slowly getting more narrow. Man United are getting closer. Newcastle have picked up a little bit of form in the last couple of games. It just felt like this is becoming a bit serious, and maybe Villa are reaching the crossroads earlier than they hoped, and the pressurised moments earlier than they hoped to.
So I read your piece on the Athletic this morning, and I think you summarised it quite well in that when Villa needed a little bit of calm against Manchester United at Old Trafford on at Christmas, it felt like the game descended into chaos. And then when it was 1-1 yesterday, and chaos seemed to be working well for Villa, we went for calm, and it does feel like that's kind of where the tide turned in the game at Villa Park last night.
Yeah, maybe Emery had it in his back of his mind what happened at Old Trafford, and maybe he's thinking, we can't go toe to toe with Man United because they're obviously, for all their faults, as I said in the preview, they're really good on transition. They quite like the basketball end-to-end game because they haven't got players that can keep the ball, for long enough spells essentially. So maybe that was in the back of his mind, but it just felt like when the crowd was up, Douglas Luiz had done his little shimmy celebration and they got that goal back. United were there for the taking, weren't they? Lindelof was getting ran ragged. 2v1. I've seen Villa create overloads, but nothing quite like that. In the second half with Diaby and Bailey initially, against Lindelof, and obviously in the first half, Ramsey and Moreno were really good and combined to good effect. I just thought that was the perfect time. The crowd, the atmosphere was electric, wasn't it? And then he brought in Tielemans, and on paper it's a fair enough sub. It just felt at the time that Bailey and Diaby were doing something, and it was their type of game. And I think Emery also asked about it afterwards. I got the hint that he probably, if he had his time again, he wouldn't make that substitution. But at the end of the day, you live and die by the sword, and he's done a lot right this year, Emery. And it's not necessarily the whole reason why Villa didn't win, but I think it was a contributing factor to why they lost a little bit of initiative after he went off.
Yeah, and talking of Douglas Luiz's dance, Rio Ferdinand can get in the bin. Stupid little tweet that he did. I don't know if he did it yesterday or today. I mean, there's someone who I've actually seen dance on a football pitch when he scored a goal as well, when he was part of terrible England teams that got knocked out early at every tournament. I don't know who he thinks he is, coming and having a go at Douglas Luiz for celebrating an equalising goal that kind of symbolises his culture as well. Absolutely get in the bin, Rio Ferdinand. That really annoyed me as much as the game, actually.
They just rubbed salt in the wounds, did it, Dan?
Just why? There's no need. Just no need for it at all.
No.
You look at his. I mean, he's got a lot wrong in punditry as well when he was talking about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as well. Just pipe down a little bit. Not a fan of that at all. It is really disappointing, is it? Because actually, Villa have lost a few games recently where you can come away from them and the games and say, I don't think that was really us. We're capable of a lot better. But actually, if you look at the 90 minutes there, Villa did a lot of good. I thought Villa were the best team. I thought Villa played really, really well. So in a way, it's a lot different to some of the other defeats because we've actually come out of that game and I thought that was actually more like us, but we've still lost.
Yeah, exactly. And that probably added to the sense of disappointment afterwards because if Villa were just terrible, at least you could be angry with the players or something. Well, this was just a bit more rueful, wasn't it? I think even Emery said it afterwards. He called it the second best home performance of the season, one of the best since he's been in charge. He was happy with, going back to my piece, he was happy between the boxes. I think that Villa were really good in between the boxes and between both Man United goals, really. But it's just, as I said, the top teams, you say what you want about Man United, they're not one of the best, but they've got this knack, haven't they, of being ruthless and clinical inside the box when they have to be and when the situation suits them. And I think Villa were just a little bit soft at points.
Yeah, I mean, in the first half, the first goal in games at the moment for Villa is vital. Obviously, on that run of consecutive home, the unbeaten stretch, Villa would inevitably score first in most games. That was how it felt, and then they'd go on and comfortably win. And it would feel like in away games, although they have come from behind a few times against the likes of Brentford and Tottenham, it would feel like if we got the first goal, we'd be okay. We aren't getting the first goal in games at the moment, especially at Villa Park. That's 3 home games in all competitions in a row where we haven't gone and got that first goal. And although I thought we were playing well, you did kind of see that goal coming from a set play because every corner that came in, it was 3 or 4 times before this goal even happened. Maguire won the first contact. We couldn't seem to deal with that. I haven't actually seen the game back. I haven't seen anything from the game back because I was out straight after the game last night and I've been busy today, so I haven't seen it back. So I don't know how tight the offside was or if there was any tomfoolery in the box for that first goal. But it felt a little bit too easy that Maguire kept getting those first contacts in the box, attacking set players.
Yeah, it did. I think the build up to the corner as well was a little bit dubious. It could have gone Villa's way in terms of the corner not being given as such initially, but at the same time, Villa have got a little bit of a set piece problem now. I was looking at the stats this
Yeah.
morning actually, and they're in the top 3 at the moment for set pieces conceded.
Are they?
Conceded 3 in the last 3 games, not counting obviously the Sheffield United game where they could have scored. That would have been 4 in 3 games.
Yeah.
And the worry for Villa is that these type of corners aren't through some brilliant invention or the set play. It's not really
It felt quite
creative.
simple.
It's pretty obvious. It's what Harry Maguire's been doing for ages. Wins the first header and makes someone else pounces on the second. I was looking, obviously, Villa use a mixture, a hybrid system of man marking and zonal, but it just looked off to me. Kamara looked like he was really struggling with Maguire just to hold him off. He was pulling his shirt at times. Maguire wanted a penalty for one in the second half. And Diego Carlos was the free man, and his job is to come out and really attack the space. But I just felt like he was a little bit too far off Maguire. So this is a bit of a concern. We can wax lyrical about the creativity going forward, but Villa are getting undone, doing the basic parts. And, these are goals now that are opening games at Villa Park, and that's playing into the mood as well, isn't it?
Yeah, the back four doesn't look fully comfortable. It's not going to when you've got your top 3 centre backs out. Mings has obviously been missing for the whole season, but you've now got no Konsa. You've had no Pau Torres. He's on the bench, and I just was hoping he'd be involved in some way because I just think he makes Villa so much better. And actually, before the game, and I tweeted this, I was watching him in the warm-up. He spent so much time with the coaches talking, and the way they were talking, the way they were gesticulating. I thought, he's definitely going to be part of the plan today. We'll get him on at half time, depending on the state of the game, and he's going to come and he's going to change whatever's happening, and everything's going to be okay because Pau Torres is going to be back. I'm not singling players out at all because it is a collective at the moment from Villa. They've been winning as a team for a long time, and at the moment, for me, they're losing as a team. But the defence, it doesn't look right. It isn't comfortable. There isn't those relationships there. Carlos and Longley, I don't think is working as a pair, either with the ball or without the ball. I think Moreno was a lot better yesterday, I thought, and looked more like his old self going forward. I think Cash is getting pelted on social media. I don't think that's fair at all, albeit I don't think he's at his absolute best at the moment. I don't think he had a bad game. Yesterday, I thought he had a decent game at right back, but it's kind of all not coming together defensively. But we're shipping goals like we have done really all season, but to a bit of a grander scale. But I still think it's going forward and just having control of games. That's where it's costing us.
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, this, as you said, this isn't Villa's first choice. You could argue that all 4 of them aren't really the first choice in their positions. I think Matty Cash, he gave everything yesterday, and I thought some parts he was good. I thought when the game was 1-0 and Villa were pressing, I thought he was getting tight on Rashford. He dealt with some of the runs well. Obviously, occasionally he'll get beaten 1v1, but that happens to most fullbacks. And I felt sorry for him for the McTominay's goal because he was left, Longley's too far over. He's not marking the front post, which is where his zone should be. Carlos then comes over across, and the space is just all off. And then all of a sudden, Cash is thinking, "Oh my God, I've got McTominay, and then I've got Garnacho, where the cross early in the half went to."
He's caught in between, isn't he?
And McTominay's got the run and jump on him as well, hasn't he? So I feel sorry for Cash, but at the same time, the defence obviously is not right. I think it hasn't got the pace and it needs to right now. Moreno's getting back to his best, but still not as sharpest. I think the struggle is probably in that midfield. Obviously Kamara gave the ball away against Chelsea. I think it's looking a little bit too exposed, a little bit too wide open. And that suggests that it's more of a structural issue than personnel at the moment. But of course, if Villa had their first choice defence, it would look a lot better.
I guess the positive thing for Villa was they've gone 1 down, like I've said, quite a lot in games recently, especially at Villa Park. But I thought the reaction was good from that point, really. I remember Garnacho putting one wide for a silky run. I thought he was very impressive yesterday. Garnacho actually probably maybe the difference in both games, you could say, in terms of individual performances. But the reaction was good, and Villa went on to literally do everything but score. Everything was there, but the final piece of the jigsaw going forward, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I think Villa are probably most free-flowing going forward for a little while. Actually, obviously, you could count the Sheffield United game, but you've got to look at your position too there. I think in terms of the attacking patterns, it's really good. Jacob Ramsey makes a huge difference when he's on song. You mentioned before, and Dan, that he's been back to his best, and I think he is now. I think with him driving inside, all of a sudden, all the movement ahead of him looks like an Emery team. Ollie Watkins makes that outside run to the channel. Moreno's overlapping. McGinn's getting into little pockets. I think they look really good, really free flowing. But uncharacteristically, at some points, I think early in the season, Villa weren't creating as many chances, but they were being clinical. Where yesterday was just a little bit off it. Watkins had those 2 chances. Most games, he'd probably score at least one of them. I think it's just that type of game you have in the season where you underperform your XG or underperform the chances presented to you, and eventually you're made to pay in the cruelest way.
Yeah, there was other misses as well, like Ramsey. It was like everything was there, but the finish, he got into good positions like he was last season where he would have scored and then was curling it wide. There was Louise missed one after the goal as well. He put timely into the goalkeeper. And Arna probably had his best game of the season where he looked the most composed he's ever probably looked. And I still didn't think he was fully composed either. He had a great save from McGinn in the first half. That shot that McGinn hit, it was very, very powerful. I was with Thomas Hitzelsberger last night after the game, and that was a shot Thomas Hitzelsberger would have been proud of. The way McGinn caught that, it just felt like it wasn't going to come. It was going to be one of those days, but it did come. And then once Villa did score a typical goal from a pullback, which actually I think has been missing in recent weeks. Villa score a lot of that goal, but I feel like it hasn't been there in recent weeks. It was taken really well from Douglas Luiz. I then just thought, we're going to win this now. We'll beat these. We're better than these. We're going to continue attacking. I quite liked what we were doing with the press. I think the fans were getting a bit antsy with it at times. And I saw McGinn come up to the crowd and try and calm them down because the Villa fans wanted them to press. But actually, Onana coming out with the ball the way he was and Villa letting him do it, that was putting doubt in his mind and that was causing problems, and they were giving the ball away. So I liked the plan with the press. Villa didn't press until very specific moments. I honestly just thought we're going to go on and win this here, but I should have known better because I've been in this position many times as a Villa fan watching Villa play Manchester United. For whatever reason, they just always seem to score late at Villa Park and win the game or draw the game, and I'm sick of it. You've got a stat, haven't you, that's going to upset me, I'm sure.
Yeah, since 2000, Man United have scored in later than the 81st minute 7 times to either, I think they've drawn twice 2 of those games and won the other 5. So seven times essentially Man United have scored late winners in this century at Villa Park alone, and that's not even counting the Makeda goal at Old Trafford.
I was at that game as well.
Yeah, brilliant. I think you saw when Douglas even scored, Longley had a golden chance just before that, didn't he? And you thought, oh my word,
it just didn't feel like it was going to go in.
But as soon as it went in, you thought not only will Villa do what they do at home, but you also thought Man United will do what they do away when they cave in, when they'll eventually surrender a late 2-1 defeat or whatever. And Villa, a great performance, finally gets punctuated by 2 goals and a victory. It just didn't happen. And as I said, these games do happen. And the important thing for players and supporters now is they look at the goals and they take them in isolation, but you really have to look at the good stuff, and you have to go on and now use that disappointment to win the next couple of games. This season will be defined on the response post Man United.
I'm trying to do that. I'm finding it very, very, very difficult because it's just this game. I hate playing against Manchester United. I've said it 50 times on this pod already. I can reel off some of the games. I remember Alpay scoring an own goal in the last minute when Villa were 1-0 up under John Gregor. I remember Javier Hernandez coming on at half-time, Villa 2-0 up. They win 3-2. I remember Van Nistelrooy coming on in the cup. Villa were 2-0 up. He scores a hat-trick. They win 3-2. There's just so many games where this kind of thing has happened. Even when McTominay came on, I don't particularly rate Scott McTominay, but I just had this feeling when I saw him arrive that he's done it a couple of times this season where he's come on and scored late goals. And this is how lucky I think Manchester United are. I don't even think Ten Hag has brought McTominay on to try and nick a goal. He's brought McTominay on to try and firm things up in the midfield because Villa are in control. And they just get lucky that he makes this run into the box, which he is good at in his defence, and he outpowers Villa's defence and he ends up scoring. But Villa was so much on top. McTominay wasn't brought on for that. But that's what happens. Villa against Manchester United just always seems to happen. And it's just so disappointing because my general emotion from yesterday is that Villa didn't do a lot wrong. And they did play well, and it just felt like such a pivotal game. And you're right, how Villa react to this now, it will make or break the season. Fulham, the next game on Saturday at Craven Cottage, hasn't really been a happy hunting ground for us either. I've been there about 8 times and never seen us win. I think the only 2 times I haven't been, we've won. And I don't think I'm going on Saturday as it stands. So maybe we'll come away with a result. But from feeling in a position of relative comfort, in my mind, I was quite convinced we were good enough to finish top 4. And I was starting to think, well, it's going to be 5th minimum, the way we're going and the way we're looking at the moment. A month later, and I'm starting to think, oh God, are we going to end up finishing 6th, 7th here? Saturday feels pretty big to me. 1874 is proudly sponsored by NordVPN, so when and you can't watch it, we want to help you. NordVPN is a secure and private service which works on pretty much any device, including your laptop, mobile, and television. So if you want to watch some live content, it allows you to appear like you're in another country. And whilst you're connected, no one else can find out what you're doing, including your internet service provider. Beyond this, the service also has threat protection baked in to protect you from intrusive website ads and malware, which is pretty handy for you. As part of NordVPN support performance for free, this also includes Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. All you've got to do is go to 1874.io/NordVPN and sign up. All the details are also in the description. As always, we're very grateful to anyone that signs up. We know that money is tight, but if you think NordVPN will help you out, it will also help keep the channel running and help us too.
Yeah, it does, and it has to be a change. Obviously, Fulham are a type of team that can cause anyone issues on a day, but at the same time, they can be quite flat as well at home, especially. I think one saving grace in a weird sort of way is that Europe can be coming around the corner sometime soon, and that actually probably works in Emery and Villa's favour in a way, because I don't think the gap between games does end that well. I know obviously they lost in the week to Chelsea in the replay, but I just think the more games they have, the more rhythm they can build up, more momentum, and it doesn't have that long gap between games where, this week now they're going to be doing analysis sessions, they're going to be doing long training sessions for a week, and although they're all obviously sticking to Emery, and it can, especially at this point of the season, become a little bit tiresome and a little bit robotic. But I think obviously more games coming up, Europe travelling around, they'll have no time to think. They're just going to be playing, on instinct really. So hopefully that can lessen the pressure that they currently face in the Premier League and maybe give some attention towards the European push too.
I'm at in a moment now. The way I'm feeling is that injuries are causing us problems now, and I'm starting to think those extra games are bad news. Whereas I've embraced Europe in the main, and Villa have done well with it. I thought they managed that load really, really well in the first half of the season. Now, at the time of recording, we don't know the extent of what's happened to Kamara, and there's murmurs going around about Konsa as well. I spoke to various people this morning and at the back end of last week as well. I don't have any concrete information. I can't confirm what I'm about to say, but from what I'm hearing, I would prepare for the worst on both players. And if Villa are going to be without those two, it's going to be a difficult, tricky second half of the season, because we can't replace those players. As much as I think Villa's squad size was probably about right, you can't replace what those two give you. There's certain players that I think Villa can't do without. There's maybe 5, 6, 7 players that I don't think Villa can replace. I think they'd be right up there.
Yeah, for sure. I think from the top of my head, I think you look at McGinn, Watkins, and Martinez as well as the other three. Sorry, in that I think Kamara's obviously a huge miss because no one does what he can do. Whether you think he's having a good season or he's in and out of form, he's the only player in that squad stylistically that can do what he can do in a deep midfield position. That's why I always sensed allowing Dendoncker to go, even though he's nowhere near as good as Kamara, was a risk. But obviously that was a part of it was because of FFP and that situation. And Konsa as well. You think you've seen he is so important playing, especially at centre back because of his pace. I think last week it was quite obvious or quite open that the 3 to 4 weeks time frame was quite ambitious. So you just hope that the scans show today for him and Kamara aren't as bad as people think and people fear. But as I'm with you, Dan, I think it could be quite bad. And if it is, that's going to have to mean a huge effort for Villa and Emery and how he compensates for these huge absences.
If Kamara's out, it means straight away McGinn has to play as a 6 for the rest of the season, I think. I don't think Tielemans and Luiz in central midfield would be the answer. Love both players, but don't think that's the answer in central midfield. It's quite telling that when Tielemans came on, McGinn dropped back into central midfield. I think he plays all over the place. He was playing a second striker yesterday, but in terms of if Luiz or Kamara's not fit, I think he's the next cab off the rank to play as a 6 in central midfield. And you're right about Konsa. Even when he plays right back, we've got no one else who can really do that job in that way. So they're pivotal players. I mean, we've had Torres out for now, what's bordering on 2 months as well. You know, keep
Yeah.
seeing him on the bench, keeps not coming. Just seems like a familiar pattern with Villa that players always seem to be out longer than you're told, or that you think. And I don't understand why you would come out and say Constant's going to be out for 3 or 4 weeks when you don't even know the full extent of it yet. That makes no sense to me. So as a club, Villa have never really managed injuries that brilliantly in terms of communication. One thing I say for Kamara is he's had a couple of bad injuries already since he's been at Villa, and he's recovered in super quick time and got himself back. So, you know, I'd have high hopes about his durability because he has returned from injuries way quicker than he was supposed to in the past last season. But there's no doubting at the moment that when it felt like everything was clicking and everything was going right at one point in the season, it does feel like the complete opposite at the moment, just in terms of everything. It feels like everything that could go wrong is going wrong right now.
Yeah, the injuries have been awful season, really. I've not really let up from the start of Moreno and Ramsey suffering reoccurrences to Powell happening now, to Luca Dini even taking a little while.
We've never had a fully fit squad to choose.
Oh, no. Every time it threatens to be fully fit, another one drops. I think there's something to be said with I'm not sure if it's to do with medical stuff or huge bad luck, but there's been reoccurrences of these injuries. So not the fact that they're getting injured and there's a recovery, but then they're getting injured again and there's another few more weeks, and that's just completely sapping out the momentum. Ramsey was the case in point, but it's happened to Moreno as well. He was out for a lot longer than people thought. I think for Kamara initially, yesterday there was hope from people I spoke to about it not being that bad. I think as the time goes on, and coming to today and later on, the picture is looking a little bit more bleak. But as I said, I've not been able to firm that up completely, hence why I've not said anything about it. But fingers crossed that there's some ray of light, because it's looking pretty bleak on the injury front.
I mean, I don't know what we would do. I honestly don't know what we would do if those two players weren't.
I honestly think, look, if Kamara's not playing, Emery's obviously not going to change how his philosophy is, but I do think he could change the system a little bit. You don't always have to go for a double pivot. You can have another body in there deeper. You can have a 4-3-3, just something different that doesn't necessarily throw the baby out of the bathwater, but just something just to offset Kamara's absence or Conte's absence. I'm sure there's a lot he can do.
Yeah, you could almost get McGinn, Louise, and Tielemans as a three, even if off the ball still.
Yeah,
you still line up in that 4-4-2. Just get McGinn tucking in it. I know he comes in and makes a box quite frequently, but kind of push Ramsey higher and Bailey and play them off Watkins. I don't know. Look at Unai Emery. Who am I to question Unai Emery? I've got absolutely no right at all. But it does feel like I don't think we have been found out, but teams are obviously finding a way to beat us at the moment, because it's happened quite frequently. So there is something has changed, whether it be from opponents sussing us out, or we're doing something differently, or we need to change something. The results dictate that something has changed, and I can't tell you what it is.
Yeah, it happens. I think it happens at every point in the season. That's where teams always evolve. You look at a Pep Guardiola team, who they are in August, although they play relatively the same, it's not the same in March or April. You saw it last season when he played 4 centre-halves, Stones moved into midfield, and all of a sudden they're great. That's what happens with these great managers. Premier League's got such elite managers. Everyone works each other out. So now the spotlight is now on Emery to move his card and see if he can change again. So it moves. I think for me, what you said is completely right, because the offside trap, people are exploiting that a lot more. They're timing their runs. Villa aren't catching as many teams offside anymore. You saw against Newcastle.
But do you think we're not playing as high? I feel like we're not playing as high as we want.
They're not playing from high in certain games, but they're still trying to time it. You saw the Newcastle game. There's still a lot of space behind. It's just some of the players are running from deeper. I think there's a lot more. They're really targeting the outside of the pitches a little bit more, because they know that whoever's the runner can see across the lines, so we can have a better chance of staying on side. But there are certain things that clubs are doing now that are really causing Villa to think. Sheffield United didn't do any of that. That's why Villa ran right.
I don't even think Manchester United.
To be fair, to their credit, second half they did manage to stop the production to Jacob Ramsey slightly by moving Kobe Mainoo's position around. But yeah, like you say, the first half, how Ramsey and Moreno playing, it's like they hadn't really seen Villa before. But that's why it was so frustrating.
I noticed kind of Fernandez was doing a lot of kind of decoy runs, and then there'd be a second man run from deeper. I noticed that in the first half when they were attacking the hole, where I sit more than I did in the second half. But look, undoubtedly something has changed and something needs to change. I don't know what it is, but something needs to change. But all I know is that if those two players are injured for long term, that helps in absolutely no way at all.
No, in short, Dan, no, it doesn't. It's a nightmare, to be honest with you.
So what do we do now? Where do Villa go from here? Where do you? I'm a Villa fan, so I probably see. I'm always quite positive. I still do think quite easily Villa could finish top four in a week, 2 weeks time. You win a few games, other teams drop points. Things look very, very different. People were complaining about Spurs scoring in the 96th minute on Saturday, but to be fair, the week before we were all celebrating because Everton equalised late on in the game. So what goes around does come around in the main, but it's a lot tighter than it was. Villa's ambition is still going to be fourth, I think. And even when people saying we're in the title race, I was still sat here saying, give me fourth now. I'll absolutely take that. But Villa they are at risk of this opening up to being a bigger race to get fourth place, aren't they? Because the teams are starting to come up behind them.
Yeah, I think in a way though, teams behind them do come up quite a bit quicker. There is less pressure on Villa. I think Emery's been quite keen on saying this. He keeps saying that they're the seventh best team in the league. He said that throughout. He's not changed, and in some ways, in the last couple of weeks, he's probably been proven right. But I think the senses from the wider public, not including Villa or the Villa fans or me, it's like they think, okay, Newcastle United, they're going to catch up with Villa. Villa are going to roughly even out. Right, I do think Villa, as you said, it changes so quickly, the perception of them. Last week they just hammered Sheffield United 5, and now everyone's going, they're back. I thought they were back as well. I thought they were fantastic, and they're going to go to Craven Cottage. I really wouldn't be surprised if they put in a dominant display, really dominant 3-1 victory. I sense that type of performance coming at some point. And if after the game, everyone's going to go, yeah, okay, brilliant recovery, and that's just everything changes. I think I'm going to start to really fear or enjoy what Villa are doing in towards the back end of March, April time, and that's when things should hopefully even out.
The thing I'm still hanging on to, and I've said it the last few shows now, is that Villa had this kind of run this time last year. They lost 3 home games in a row. It felt like the initial momentum that they'd got when Emery came in had been lost a little bit, and then they went on this incredible run. But Villa didn't have Europe to deal with. Villa weren't unlucky with injuries. In fact, it was the opposite. We didn't really get any injuries in that run. We had a very settled team. We got better week in, week out, got more resilient week in, week out. We were keeping clean sheets. Watkins was scoring goals. Ramsey was looking dangerous. Moreno had transformed. That left-hand side, it felt like we kind of, obviously because we'd had a bad start to the season and then had that sticky patch, it felt like we were coming into we kind of hit form at the right time. I'm hoping that's going to happen again. But part of me thinks, have we had our good spell where everything was going right in the first half of the season, and now the second half is going to be more difficult and things are going to even out? Because there's no doubt Villa were overachieving.
Yeah, for sure. And you saw that as well in certain games. Again, they were fortunate at Tottenham away when they could have scored a few more goals and they got a victory like that. I think it is even now, and a 38 game season is a great leveler. But Emery said this the other day, and I think Ollie Watkins said it as well. There's no need for Villa to fear or feel pressured, because they're in an unbelievable position still. They're still in Europe. This is what Villa fans were dreaming of a year ago, 18 months ago. So I think rather than be fearful of who's coming up behind or what happens, I think they should just go with it and roll with the punches, as hard as it will be in terms of the injuries. This is a brilliant opportunity, and this is a real chance for Villa to break the door open in the Champions League. So they should just go for it. And I really wouldn't err on the side of caution at all.
Yeah, but I mean, the other news today is that Leon Bailey has signed a new contract, but we kind of covered that last week, so we won't go through it again, albeit it's very good news at a time when we kind of need some good news because everyone's still upset about yesterday. I'd completely forgotten that I'd put a tweet out asking for questions, so I better rattle off a few of these quickly. Danny, Beds Villa fan, kind of just follows on from what I've just said. Have we overachieved in the first half of the season, or is our poor home form so far in 2024 down to our rotten luck with injuries? I would say I think it is to do with injury. I still just think if Pau Torres had been fit throughout this run, Villa have more points than they do right now, and they haven't lost certain games that they've ended up losing. Something I disagree with here. Casho76, we're still not clinical enough. I can't disagree with that part. I was still suffering from not signing a 20-plus season goal scorer. I feel Ollie's under so much pressure with no backup. You can't sign a 20 goal a season to be backup. That's just not plausible, is it?
No, that's why John Duran's probably the perfect backup if his head's right.
Well, and fitness is, and
his fitness.
Bloody April, there is a. So yeah, there's another option that's not there at the moment. Tez official says if Kamara is injured long term, hopefully not. Do you think Tim will be ready to play?
Emery loves him. He talks about him a lot.
Does he actually love him? Because I feel like he hasn't given him that much football. He does love him.
I'm writing a piece on this next week. He mentions him more, like unprompted, more than any other player.
Really?
He thinks he's great, but yeah, he's at odds with what you see. He's had 25 minutes all season in FA Cup and Premier League. The Premier League, 19 minutes of them was against Sheffield United when they're 5-0 up. So I think at some point you'll see him. I think there's a hope from his side, the player, that he'll get a chance. He'll start a game when an opportunity falls. Who knows? It might be because of Kamara. But Emery's got real high hopes for him. So I'm excited as everyone else to see what the fuss is about from Emery. But he just got to start trusting him.
Yeah, Paul Benton's asking, should Villa be better at injury comms? I'm not going to say anything because otherwise I'll be getting a phone call, no doubt. Dan Woolahan, sounds a bit like Hurahan, says usually we're heaping praise on Emery's tactical in-game decisions, but did he hand United the game by taking Bailey off? Was it an injury sub or tactical? I know we've kind of covered that already, but Bailey does never seem to play 90 minutes. I presume that's because he can't. That's my assumption.
That Emery's also, and the fitness staff are concerned about his durability as well. I think muscle injuries tend to creep in if he plays, obviously back-to-back games like he did in midweek, but also any long periods of time. The same with Moussa Diaby. They're really concerned about him playing back-to-back games because both of them are so quick and so electric. There's such a risk of hamstring injuries or muscle injuries too.
Yeah, I'm just looking through it. To be fair, we've covered a lot of the questions that people have asked. Yeah, a lot of people asking about Timmy Rugbuna, in fairness. Absolutely bizarre one here that I can't say I even understand this one bit. It says Villa would have scored more than one goal had Keenan Davis been on the pitch for at least 20 minutes. Discuss. Keenan Davis was always injured, so he was never on the pitch, and he hasn't really been on the pitch for Udinese since. Also, he only ever scored one goal for Villa.
I was going to say he only scored one goal, so it would have been a marked up turn performance.
Yeah. Andy Soden, any comments on the recent post from Project B6? Sounds like the club has dispensed of their services for fan-led displays. Again, probably get myself in trouble, but I just, don't like what's happened there at all. Don't like the way that's been handled or the way they've been treated, but it is what it is. It's probably about it, because everything's kind of being covered. I guess we finish on John McGinn's words after the game. I don't know whether you were involved in any post-match interview with McGinn, if you saw him afterwards, or whether you heard what he said. But I thought his words were quite good, quite kept a level head, really, which is what's needed. And he kind of took Villa on his shoulders, carried Villa on his shoulders, almost in saying it's down to me now to put this right, which I like from a captain.
Yeah, for sure. You see him after the game as well. He always, win, lose, or draw, he's always the last one off, isn't he? Clapping everyone, marching towards the whole end. I think he's the type of captain that's going to, as we said it in preview as well, in these type of moments, he's the one that's going to really lead through his actions on the training pitch. He trains hard anyway, but he's going to really put it about. He might call out someone just to get the tempo going, the aggression going. And I think they'll have a huge. There wasn't much time between Chelsea and the United game, but I think this week there'll be some real work going on and some tough love going on at Bodymoor Heath.
Would they have been in today, having to watch that back?
They would have to be probably recovering. They'll probably watch it back tomorrow.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to put them through it. I feel sorry for the players because it isn't down to the lack of effort in any way at all. These players give everything for the shirt week in, week out. I've watched Villa teams where you could. I honestly never think a footballer goes out there to play badly or not put in 100%. But I think over the years we have watched Villa teams and I've thought, you could be doing a little bit better. You could perhaps put a little more in, but I would never level that at Unai Emery's Villa. These players are giving absolutely everything. Every single one of them that's played a single second of football for Villa has given everything for the club this season. They're as probably gutted as we are at losing that game. You could see some of the reaction from the players after the game, on the knees, lying down on the floor. It's important to stick together at this point and not lose focus, not get on anyone's back, because I still think for me the fans can do better at games. That's my honest opinion. I'm part of that. I'm in the ground. I'm in the whole in myself. I think there could be a bit more positivity in games. I don't think it was bad yesterday, but there's been other games where I have felt it, that if we go 1-0 down, the atmosphere just completely flattens, which isn't what the players need. The players need us to be behind them for 90 minutes, and when things are going bad, the players need it even more. So for me as a fan base, sometimes I think we can do better. Away from home, fans are spot on. I wouldn't knock them for 1 second, but certainly at Villa Park, I think the fans can do more at times. That's my honest opinion. These players give everything. They give everything for this football club, don't they?
Yeah, they do, and it'd be unfair for me to tell a supporter how they should be supporting. I think they've been fair throughout. I think they've been support for encouraging for the large part. I think now it's not the time to pick out on players, individually. No. I think obviously Matty Cash is maligned on social media, criticised heavily, and I think he gave everything yesterday. You saw his reaction. I looked at his reaction, especially at full time, and he was devastated. Even when McTominay scored, he took 25 seconds to get himself back up onto his feet. He's given everything. I think all of those players are. So, you can criticise players for their performances at times, but I wouldn't go so heavy on one individual when the effort that is there. And this is a season when there's a lot of games. They're having to be machines. Their whole life. I know they get paid huge amounts of money, and that's what they do. But their whole life's been spent in hotels, travelling, home games, away games in Europe. They're putting a lot of preparation in. Their bodies are tired, their minds are tired, but they're giving everything. There's not one player out there on that pitch that's wavering, because they know if they do, they won't be playing.
Yeah, and this is a team. I think they win together and they lose together, but they are a team. And as I've said, I've watched plenty of Villa teams over the years where I've not felt like that, and this could still be a really successful season. Villa are still, very well placed, aren't they? Still very well placed to have a good season, and I think based on last season, Villa are also more than capable of going on a run. So although it feels like things are falling apart a little bit and that everything's going wrong, things can change very, very quickly. So, yeah, I think that's probably a good way to end the pod. And I know you need to go as well. So thank you very much for stepping in today, Jacob. Always enjoy having a chat about Villa with you. I think you see things from a different perspective from me, sometimes not being a fan, but I'm loving how you've adapted to life reporting on Villa. And I know from the comments on The Athletic as well that the Villa fans are really, really enjoying your work. So I'm sure I'll be speaking to you again on a show soon.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it, mate.
No worries. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to subscribe to The Athletic as well if you want to read Jacob's pieces. Do all the things that help the channel, like liking, commenting, just do all those good things, and we'll start popping up in places we don't usually pop up when people venture onto YouTube. Even if you're taking it in via audio as well, do all the good things as well for us. Be back for a match preview ahead of the Fulham game as well. I'm a little less busy than I was at the start of the year, so I'll start trying to incorporate some extra shows into the agenda as well. I can almost feel Adam sinking down into his chair with me saying something like that. But yeah, we'll try and incorporate some new shows.